corrected version. The Washington Post explained what it knew about why the FBI was even contemplating a visit to Giuliani in the first place. From the Post, quote, the FBI became aware in late 2019 that Rudolph W. Giuliani was the target of a Russian influence operation aimed at circulating falsehoods intended to damage President Biden politically ahead of last year's election, according to people familiar with the matter. Figluzzi continues, quote, what no outlet examined in detail, though, was the question of why the FBI, knowing that someone was the target of a Russian intelligence operation, would decide to not sit down with that person. And as of now, Giuliani is still talking about a government conspiracy. He told Fox News this afternoon, quote, they are trying to frame me. They are trying to find something they can make into a crime, some technical violation, some mistake I made. They'll take anything. Joining our conversation is Frank Figluzzi, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterintelligence. Also joining us, Andrew Weissman, former FBI General Counsel and former senior member of the Mueller investigation, now a professor of law at NYU. And Claire is still around. All three, lucky for us, MSNBC contributors. Frank, tell me more about your analysis of a defensive briefing prepared and ultimately not delivered.
Sure. Well, Andrew has experienced this as well, and I've had to make decisions as assistant director for counterintelligence about whether to brief or not to brief. And ultimately, you do a cost-benefit analysis, and you decide whether it's even sensible to do it. Does it help or hurt the investigation? And here's how that discussion may have gone with regard to Rudy Giuliani and the briefing that wasn't given. First question would have been asked, what's the purpose of the briefing? And somebody would have said, well, we do these briefings to raise awareness. We do these briefings to warn people that they're in over their head with the Russians. And then somebody might have said, Rudy Giuliani was the Associate Attorney General of the United States. He was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. He knows how foreign intelligence services operate. So this doesn't really give him a heads up or a warning about anything he doesn't already know. Next question. What might he say in response to a briefing? Well, he's going to ask if he's under investigation and ask for details, and we can't tell him exactly. He's going to ask if he can give a statement to us, and can he tell us that he thinks he knows exactly what he's doing and doesn't need a briefing? He will say that. And do we Mirandize him because he may incriminate himself? Yeah, maybe we might have to Mirandize him. He might think he's in custody or being interrogated. Okay. And then last question, what do we get out of this? Do we have evidence on Giuliani right now? Do we need him to say something? Do we need to monitor him after the briefing to see if he changes his conduct? Answer, probably not. We probably have enough. This is probably more harmful to give the briefing than not. He's going to come out publicly if we give it, and he's going to say, they never told me to stop doing what I was doing. Therefore, I thought it was okay. Let's not give the briefing. That's how that goes.
Andrew Weissman, I want to come back to the view from Rudy, because we also know a lot of what we know about Rudy's position, both as someone for whom a defensive briefing was prepared and ultimately not delivered, as Frank just explained, but also as someone who the curtain was yanked back when his home and offices were delivered search warrants. His defense on television, which is sort of where they all roll it out, has always been Donald Trump told me to do it. But can you just explain, when you're under investigation for FARA violations, two things can be true. You can also be acting as an agent of a foreign government. Isn't that the case?
Absolutely. So he has a really good defense if he was solely acting for a U.S. person. So if his only client was the president of the United States, now the former president, then that cannot be a FARA violation, because that requires that he act for a foreign person, either a foreign government or any foreign individual. The issue here is you can walk and chew gum at the same time. He can have both, as many lawyers do, they have multiple clients. And so the task for the Southern District of New York is going to be parsing that out and to follow the money trail and the paper trail as to who the clients were for Rudy Giuliani. If he has foreign clients, they clearly were asking him to do something. And so all you have to do is trace that out as to what he was doing for them, and to show that in part what he was doing was for a foreign client.
And wasn't that part of that was central to the Manafort investigation? And I wonder if you could just tell us, correct me if I'm wrong, but if not, how does the seizure of the electronic device or devices enhance that investigation? What would you imagine FBI is doing with Rudy's information now?
Sure. So first, you're absolutely right. The FARA statute is a statute that was not often prosecuted. That's an understatement until the special counsel investigation. And then Paul Manafort and Rick Gates and others were investigated and charged with being actors in the United States for foreign governments. And this is a statute that a lot of people in the Senate are on both sides are saying really needs to be enforced a lot more, and I agree with that. In terms of what you're trying to get in doing a search of his house, of Victoria Tensing's house, is you're looking for, frankly, you're looking for leads. What you're really trying to get is what are all the ways that Rudy Giuliani communicates? What kind of applications does he use? We did this in the special counsel investigation where you discover certain email accounts and certain applications that people use, but you don't know all of them. There is nothing better than getting someone's actual iPhone, their laptop and iPad so that you can see all of the different ways in which people communicate. And then you follow that paper trail and you get search warrants for those communication devices as well. And you go to internet service providers because the paper trail and the money trail is going to be critical here.
Claire, what is your sense, all of the sort of bluster and what we hear from Rudy, which is deflection and misdirection, what is your sense of his true legal peril right now as we sit here?
Well, I'm appearing on your show with two people who spent their lives working on what we would call in the state system paper prosecutions. When you are a state prosecutor, you respond to 911 calls, and it's rape and robbery and murder and a burglary and all of those crimes. The feds are the ones that handle the really complex investigations that are paper-based. And let me just circle and put stars all around what Andrew just said about following the money. Does anybody really believe that Rudy Giuliani wasn't pocketing big money through all of this? Of course not. Remember the one call he made when there was a butt dial and you could hear him saying to someone, we've got to get some money in the door. We've got to get, I don't remember what the amount was, 50,000 or 100,000 in the door. This was a guy who was depending on six-figure checks from clients on a consistent basis. Now, does anybody believe that he was just running around the world pro bono with all of these oligarchs and all of the money that is just totally flushing through the back rooms of these crooks? Of course not. So what is really going to happen here is the federal government, and he knows this, and that's what's really ironic about this, is that he knows what the Southern District can do with a paper investigation surrounding following the money. But he thought he was untouchable because of Donald Trump. And now they're under a time crunch, I think. But I think if they just do what these two really smart guys I'm on with will explain to you, if they just follow the money, I think they've got Rudy Giuliani. I think they've got him.
Frank, I'm going to give you a quick last word. Where would you say this investigation is maturity-wise? Nearing its end, in the middle? Can you put any sort of timeline on it?
Yeah, when the search warrant is executed, you're pretty much saying, look, everybody, you're announcing to the world, we've got an investigation. We've got enough for probable cause to get in this guy's devices. We're pretty much looking to corroborate what we already know. I think it's wrapping and nearing an end. But let me just respond to what Claire said. This sets up a fascinating tension between Trump and Giuliani, because as Claire said, Giuliani was probably getting money from the Ukrainians or elsewhere. And now Trump, he's going to claim, Giuliani, I was just working for Trump. He's my client, not for a foreign power or people. Right. And Trump have to say, yes, He was just working for me. I knew everything he was doing. Trump's not going to say that. Rudy's going to be hung out to dry.